Hey, skiers and boarders, this is First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Brad Pennish down here in Charlotte, North Carolina with your Ski Southeast update. What a awesome President's Day weekend. Powder everywhere. The best conditions by far this season, exactly as we expected. That cold temperatures and natural snow made for a great weekend. A little bit of ice there on President's Day, but I tell you what, didn't spoil great conditions. And even tonight, I'm amazed looking at the webcams how great the conditions are going into the middle of this week. Let's start with what's going on. We got a fast-moving clipper system that's giving a nice little coating of wet, heavy snow in North Carolina, and there's going to be a little bit of wet snow up in West Virginia and Virginia behind the system. A little bit of northwest flow snow. You can see that on Wednesday as temperatures are going to be cool at night, but not exactly cold. We're not going to see the frigid temperatures we saw over the last week or so. Temperatures are going to be warming up a little bit going into the weekend. Doesn't mean conditions won't be bad. It just means that ideal, but conditions aren't going to be bad. We're going to see kind of spring-like conditions here for a couple days. Not a lot of melting, but we will see a little bit of melting as we go into the weekend. Here's the snow tonight. Look at North Carolina winning out, maybe 2 to 4 inches. Higher elevations might see 6 inches. I think 1 to 3 inches up in parts. Oh, we lost our model there, but which basically you got the idea, about 1 to 3 inches of snow up in West Virginia, Western Maryland, and Virginia. As far as those snow-making conditions, at night, we'll make snow tonight, maybe tomorrow night. But as we get closer to the weekend, it just gets a little warmer each night, and we start dealing with the inversion, especially on Friday in the North Carolina mountains. So a little bit of a warm-up going into the weekend. But if you think winter's over and you're like, oh, that's it, ski season's done, not so fast. We've got a very, very deep trough digging in across the eastern half of the country. After this little taste of spring this weekend, it's going to be in the 60s in many locations. But look at this dip developing the middle of next week. That is awesome. That is plenty of cold air, so snowmaking resumes. And look at this. We've got a low possibly developing off the East Coast. This thing could crank up by the end of next week. This is an interesting pattern. I think we're going to have a low somewhere over the southeast. In fact, don't tell anyone I showed you this, but the European model, again, this is 10 days out, so please don't put a ton of stock in this. But just to give you an idea of the pattern next week, it gets really snowy Wednesday, Thursday, Friday into the upcoming weekend, next weekend. Not this weekend, but next weekend. Look at that. That looks like a foot of snow possible. Again, that's 10 days out, so take that as fantasy land, but I do like the pattern. Big trough again, very similar to what we had this past weekend, and a better setup for snow later in the week. We're probably going to see a little bit of snow early next week with the pattern changing front that comes in and knocks down the warm temperatures, but usually you get a bigger storm on the secondary system that comes in after the trough has been established, and that looks like Thursday, Friday next week. So hold on to your hats, folks. We're not done with winter yet, and the great end of this ski season continues. Horrible December. We know how bad it was. But January, now February, and now end of February, March, I'm telling you, this season's going to go late this year. We're going to have a late season. And March, I tell you, the first half is really going to be great because El Nino winters, that's pretty typical. The winters are always backloaded. It's the end of the winter and even early spring when we get the best conditions. So, again, a little warm up this week, but more cold and snow on the way next week. And as always, think snow. I'm loving what I'm seeing going into next week.